The early couple chapters of Bloodlines reintroduced us to the vampire world in general, and then the next couple chapters take us in more closely and reacquaint us with the characters that we know from the previous series, not just in name, but also in person, because a lot of them are there. And we even get a visit from Rose, our narrator from Series 1. And I wanted her in there just partially because she does play a role in the plot. You know, she's obviously concerned with Lissa's security and Jill's because that's what she does. But I wanted to remind readers of what Rose is doing, what's happened to her since the last book. And it should come as no surprise to anyone that her life still isn't entirely perfect. And she kind of jokes that, oh, here, I thought I'd finally get some peace and quiet with Dimitri, and it looks like it's not going to happen because more things are going wrong. And that's kind of, you know, that's the norm in Rose's world. There's always something that she has to deal with. But it was fun to kind of put her in there, and it was also really great to look at Rose from someone else's eyes, because in a book and when you're writing and when you're reading, there's a big difference in how a character describes themselves when you're writing in first person and you're in that I'm like this, I do this. And then how does someone else see them? Because it's not always the same. We don't always see ourselves the way others do. And so it was fun to write, okay, here's how Sydney views Rose. When Rose walks into a room, she dominates her space, and you know she's deadly and beautiful. And we've gotten that impression from Rose's own voice, but this is the first time we've really seen how others react to her. And equally important in the scene is we kind of see how Rose and Adrian are acting around each other after their spectacular breakup in the last series. And it's not exactly hostile. They aren't shouting at each other or getting into a cat fight or anything, but they're also not really friendly. And you know, that's often the way it is after a breakup when you're in public and you've got people around you. You try to put on a good face, but there's still this obvious tension there. And it's even obvious to Sydney in this scene, who is not quite the savviest person with interpersonal relationships, but even she can kind of see, okay, there's some uneasiness here with Rose and Adrian, but the fact that they've reached a point where they can be in the same room is pretty amazing at this point. Chapters 3 and 4 also bring another favorite from the series. We get to see Abe again, who I'm just continually surprised at how much Abe is loved and adored. He's a scoundrel. I love and adore him because scoundrels are fun to write. They have the best dialogue, and they don't have to play by the rules of other people. So it's nice to have Abe in here again. And you know, he's in there not just for color and excitement in the story. He's also there because we know from the previous series that there's some weird connection with him and Sydney, and we don't entirely know what it is, only that he's got something on her, something that sort of has locked her into this perpetual favor, that she constantly owes him things and has to do things for him. And you sense her tension in this scene. And even as our narrator, though, she's still not telling us what it is that Abe has over her. So we know there's something. We can tell just by you know, her nervousness around him, but we still don't know what that is. And that's going to be something that comes to light later. We also get to see Jill again, which has been a big question for a lot of people, particularly after the ending of Last Sacrifice. What becomes of Jill? Jill ends that series in a really, really pivotal role. She finds out she's the second member of this family, which is dying off, and that's a pretty big thing when there's only two of you. And not only that, but her role is essential for Lissa still staying on the throne. And so she's been thrust into this role that she never expected to have, one in which an entire civilization of people is kind of dependent on. And while that is important, we were also left with the impression in the last book that she's in danger of possibly being treated as an object because of this, because her personality, you know, who she is, that almost gets pushed aside in favor of what she can do in this larger role. And we kind of get a glimmer of this now when we meet her, because here she is, she's been shuffled off to Palm Springs for her own safety, but also for the safety of her sister, and again, to hold the stability of the government. And you kind of start to see, okay, what kind of effect does this have on Jill? She's always been kind of timid at times, and so some of that is just her own natural character, but there's still the sense that something else is going on. She's clearly worried and troubled about some things that have happened in her past, and we're not sure at this point, is it just because of this role, because it's her responsibility to stay alive and keep the throne secure? Is that why she's upset, or is there something more? And so this just kind of seeds that and gives us a taste of what's to come later in the book. The last character of note that's introduced in chapters 3 and 4 is Clarence, the host for Adrian, and also their source of blood while the gang is in Palm Springs. And what's kind of interesting about him is that we don't know his entire history. We know that, of course, that he's this kind of scattered, out-of-it old man, but we also get the impression he's kind of a dissident in the larger Moroi government, not the kind that's actively out protesting or anything, but he's not entirely happy with them, and he's just kind of put himself in isolation because he feels like the system has fallen through for him. The Guardians didn't help him. He doesn't think the greater Moroi officials have really done justice by him. And it's one of the first times we ever see that in the series, because most everybody in series 1 was, they just kind of towed the line of the Moroi. They wanted to effect changes in it, but people never really questioned it or just completely removed themselves. And so he's kind of shows us a different face of what Moroi are like out there in the larger world.